rainy morning. I speak fairly often at the retirement lectureship, and there I have to say welcome to the lectureship on this cold, snowy morning. So this is somewhat better. Anyway, we're very glad to see each of you in a full house today, and that's a blessing from an unusual thing for such a bad day. So we appreciate the fact that you've come out in spite of the difficulties. There is a balcony upstairs if anybody would like to go. There's a few places to sit right down here at the front. I don't sit at the front, but all right. My topic is the prophets confront their culture. And we're going to be talking about all week about how whoever is representing God in that particular day confronts the culture of which they're a part. There are lots of ways that the prophets confront their culture. And a lot of different passages to choose from to emphasize that. And time restraints require that we pare it down a bit. So I'm going to talk about two areas this morning in which the prophets confront their culture. One is the overriding culture of idolatry, which not only was prevalent in the secular culture of that day, but was also prevalent in God's people in that day. And the prophets had to continually deal with that. And the other is the fact that the people of that day were very careful and scrupulous to worship like God wanted them to worship, with sacrifices and other such things that God had commanded. But their lives during the week, Monday through, well, there was worship on Saturday, but their lives through the week were not consistent with their worship. And that was also a prominent culture of the time which they had to deal with. And those are the two things that we'll be talking about this morning. Idolatry is a strange phenomenon. Isaiah, in Isaiah 44, ridicules it, really. He says, you cut down a tree, you take a little bit of it and use it to warm and cook your food. You take a little bit more and build a shed out of it, and then you take the rest of it and build a god, and you bow down before it and say, you're my God, deliver me. And that is ridiculous on the face of it. That's a point that the prophets like to make. God, Yahweh, the Lord, is the true and living God, which is different from the idols which are neither true nor living. God can, Jehovah, Yahweh, can deliver his people. The idols can deliver no one. Interestingly, even in the New Testament, Paul says that the idol is nothing. And that's true. And it basically agrees with what Isaiah is saying. Complication of idol worship in those days, which we learned through the Telemachus tablets that Dr. Albert stood up several hundred years ago, is that their worship was immorally corrupt. They actually worshiped with fornication, with sexual immorality. They had cult prostitutes, both male and female. And the people who came to them had sex with those prostitutes, and that was their way of worshiping those gods who were considered to be the fertility gods of that day. Well, I suspect you can imagine that some of the people who came there to worship were not so interested in worshiping God as they were in the other things that they might get out of it. But in any way, they were worshiping. They worshiped the idols, and God was pretty clear about that. Interestingly, even before we knew that, we knew that God called the worship of idols adulterous, using the figure that he was the husband, and they were going after other gods, and so that was unfaithfulness and immorality. For a while we didn't know that it was actual immorality that was taking place, that validated that comparison, but there was. And it was very important to God that they stay away from those immoral and ungodly practices. God had told them to wipe out the people of that land. And specifically, he had told them to do that because he said, if you don't, then your sons will marry their daughters and they'll corrupt you after other gods and can carry you away into other worships that you ought not to be a part of. And the Jews didn't do that. They didn't completely eradicate the people of that land. They didn't fix it so there would be no influence in the land to lead them away into that corrupt idolatry. And as a result of that, it was a problem throughout the time that they were living in that land of Canaan. An interesting thing to me is that idolatry was a continuous problem for God and the Jews from the time they first formed into a nation with a golden calf, while they were actually receiving the Ten Commandments that said you shall not worship any other God and that you shall not make of thee any graven image, all the way to the time when they were carried away into Babylonian captivity, the time that these prophets are talking about. After the Babylonian captivity, idolatry was never a problem among the Jews anymore. Maybe parents sometimes can get some consolation out of that. We punish, we fuss, we argue, but maybe at some point the punishment becomes strong enough that they don't do it anymore. And that's what happened with Israel. The 70 years of captivity in Babylon cured them of idolatry. We know from when Jesus came later in their history that it didn't cure them of all their sins, but at least it cured them of idolatry, and they never worshiped idols again after that. But idolatry was one of the cultural things that the prophets confronted in their day. And just as a sidelight, we don't build statues and bow down to them and worship them. But there is a form of idolatry nevertheless. The Apostle Paul says in one instance that covetousness is idolatry, which simply means that any time we put anything in front of God, that's idolatry. And therefore power, influence, and money are prominent idols of today. And I'd add sports. I see people who seem to have a football team or a basketball team as their religion. And here's what determines that, I think. First of all, they really are committed to it. They spend a lot of money going to it, probably a lot more than they give to the in the church. If you follow a team away from home and then stay in hotels and eat out meals in the time when you're there, you spend several $100. And that's a sizable investment, if you please. But in addition to that, if after that, if your team wins, you're happy the rest of the week, and your team loses, you're grieving the rest of the week, because that's the thing that matters to you. And that adds to the likelihood that you're making your football or basketball team your idol, your God. And especially if in the midst of all of that, that causes you simply to miss all the services of worship and other work of the church that you might otherwise be doing. Idolatry is not dead, and we need to be sure that we don't worship our idols. Worship and life is an interesting part of the culture that the prophets confront. We're talking today about Amos and Hosea and Isaiah primarily. prophets, we sometimes call them. And they were very similar in a lot of ways. And the things that I will recognize and talk about this morning, including idolatry, can be duplicated in any of those other prophets. I have to pick out one or two for the sake of time, but nevertheless, you can find incidents of these things that I'm mentioning throughout those prophets that spoke during this particular time. Assyria was the protagonist of Judah and Israel at this time. And the earlier years, the time we're talking about, it was a time of peace and prosperity. Assyria was busy conquering Syria and holding off Babylon to maintain their predominance throughout the area. And as a result of that, they had no time to bother with Israel and then Judah. And it was a relative time of peace because they had no big enemies that were trying to come against them. They were busy elsewhere. Tiglath-Pileser III was the ruler of Assyria at this time, and he had much of the power in the world, but it was north and east of Israel, and did not bother them as much as otherwise they might have. The culture in Israel was that the rich and powerful cheated and mistreated the poor while piously pretending to worship Yahweh. Here's a lengthy passage that I want you to carefully follow that deals with this particular issue. Isaiah 1, verses 10 to 17. Hear the word of the Lord in Jerusalem. Solomon, give ear to the teachings of our God, you people of Gomorrah. And if you don't catch it, Isaiah is calling the people of God Sodom and Gomorrah. You people of Gomorrah, what to me is the multitude of your sacrifices, says the Lord. I've had enough of burnt offerings of rams and fat of well-fed beasts. I do not delight in the blood of bulls or lambs or goats. When you come to appear before me, who has required of you this trampling of my courts? Bring no more vain offerings. Incense is an abomination to me. New moons and Sabbaths and the calling of convocations. I cannot endure in iniquity and solemn assembly. Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hates. They have become a burden to me. I'm weary of bearing them. When you spread out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you, even though you make many prayers. I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves. Make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your deeds before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do good. See justice. Correct oppression. Bring justice to the fatherless. And plead the widow's cause. How does sacrifice and incense become an abomination when that's exactly what he had commanded the Jews to do in terms of their worship? It was not because they were not doing it right. It was rather because their lives during the time away from their worship did not live consistently with what they were claiming in the way that they worshiped. If I may say so, I think that this particular point that the prophets are here making has a great deal of relevance to us today in churches of Christ. We had a restoration movement, and it was very successful. When you start out to restore things, you have to think about what you're going to restore. And different people have done this in different ways. We are familiar with the Mennonites and the other people who have decided that the thing to restore is the dress and the avoidance of modern culture. So they don't use cars, they use carts pulled by animals, and they dress like they did in New Testament times, and that's how they restored New Testament Christianity. We would say, I think, incorrectly, that they are restoring incidentals rather than important things that they should be restored. But our restoring forefathers decided instead to restore the New Testament worship. And it needed done. By that time, several hundred years after the New Testament, instrumental music had become a part of worship, which God had not called for or requested. And the Lord's Supper began to be used in ways other than the time that God intended for it to be. The Lord's Supper was the first day of the week, because that was the day upon which the Lord was raised from the dead. That was the Lord's day, and that's the Lord's Supper. It's interesting, not conclusive, but interesting, that the only two times that this word Lord is not a possessive, but an adjective, is when it's used in the Lord's Supper and the Lord's Day. And Brother Everett Ferguson and others have correctly said there ought not to be any Lord's Day without the Lord's Supper, or any Lord's Supper without the Lord's Day. They go together because they celebrate the Lord's resurrection, which also occurred on the first day of the week. And if you know me well and follow what I do, you're aware that I have strongly opposed instrumental music, and that I have a whole treatise about that. By the way, both instrumental music and the Lord's Supper I have in a format that I can email. And if any of you would like to see either one of those, if you would just email me, I'm cmay@faulkner.edu. I'll be glad to return by email these things that I've written about that. I say that to say that I'm not in disagreement with our forefathers who chose to restore New Testament worship. It needed to be done, and to my understanding, it has been done pretty well, correctly. But we may be guilty of the same thing that the Jews were guilty of in this time of prophetic culture. What they were doing was, as powerful and wealthy people, they were withholding the wages of their people who worked for them. They weren't paying them a fair wage. They were going out and cheating widows. The sellers had scales that cheated them both ways. When they came in and weighed their produce, it gave them a lesser amount than they actually had. And when they weighed out what they were receiving for it, it gave them a greater number than what they had. And so whether they were selling or buying, they were being cheated. And one of the things that the prophets emphasized the strongest is that they were ignoring the plight of the widows and the orphans. Widows and orphans are still in rather desperate straits at times. I know they're better off than they were at some time because we pay more attention to them than we used to. We have both homes for widows and homes for orphans, and some of them are well taken care of. I was touched, I suspect that many of you were as well, by the movie about the Catholic Children's Home where the little boy came to the door with his little brother on his shoulders. And the people at the orphan's home commended him for bringing him, but said, "You must be very tired, he's surely heavy." And this little boy said, "No, he's not heavy, he's my brother." That's a touching thought. And it ought to be characteristic of us when we think of any kind of burden that we carry, because we're concerned about our brothers and sisters and are helping them in whatever way we can. But the very strong admonition is that we ought to be sure, if we have any power over others, that we are not favoring people based on how wealthy they are rather than what their needs are and who they are. We need to be aware that The poor and the needy should not be overlooked. One of the things that the prophet says was going on is that they took a bribe from the wealthy to mistreat, cheat, and not give a right verdict to the poor. And they also ignored completely the plight of those who needed them and needed help from them. And the result of that was that there was a plight of unfairness throughout the whole culture. We may find ourselves in a similar situation. I believe with all my heart that we worship correctly according to our restoration of New Testament worship. But if we go out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we're not following God, we don't care about the poor, we don't help those who are in need, we're not concerned about the orphan, then we're falling into the same trap that the Jews of that day were falling in, and which the prophets were very strongly condemning. It matters how we worship, but it also matters greatly how we care for people who are in need. And if we miss that, then our worship becomes vain. God may say, I don't care about your acapellas. He may say, I don't care about your Lord's Supper on the Lord's Day. Because he has said, I don't care about your sacrifices, and I don't care about your burning incense, which were the very things that he had commanded for the worship of that day. We can nullify our worship by the lives that we live from day to day. One of the purposes actually of worship is to feed us spiritual food so that we will be fortified to help those who are in need and to carry out the work of the church in ways that are commanded us for the poor and the needy. It's striking to me that when Jesus pictured the last day of the judgment in Matthew chapter 25, that he had the sheep and the goats separated from one another. You know which one were the sheep and which one were the goats. But what determined that was how they had treated the poor. Jesus said to those on his left hand, I was hungry and you did not feed me. I was thirsty and you gave me no drink. I was needy and in the hospital and in prison and you didn't visit me or care for me. And as a result, go away from me, depart from me, you work of iniquity into the burning fire. But then he said to those on his right hand, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was sick and in prison and you came to me and visited me and cared for me when I was lonely and hurt and helpless. That's the criteria for judgment that Jesus presented. I guess based on what I preach otherwise, I would sort of expect him that he would say to those on his left hand, you weren't baptized, you didn't sing with acapella music, and you didn't take the Lord's Supper on the Lord's Day. And I think that is a correct criteria of judgment that will be involved. The Bible makes that pretty clear in other places. But when Jesus talks about the judgment, he uses entirely different criteria. And it's the same criteria, by the way, that the prophets used when they were working at the thing that he was confronting. I just looked at the clock and realized I've already over that. That was one of the cultures of that time that he confronted, and it's one that might be relevant to us. Let's be sure that though we worship correctly, that we also live in the way that God wants us to live in regard to other people. The second most important commandment is love your neighbor as you love yourself. Thank you very much for coming. It is, I believe, 5 to, no, I'm sorry. I was thinking 8 to 9, it's 8:30, 9:30. Anyway, this whole thing about the difference between how we treat other people is a factor that we need to take notice of, as the prophets told the Jews of their day that they need to take notice of. I'm honest with you. I really don't know what to do with the people I pass at the exits of the interstate holding up signs, I'm homeless, I'm sick, I need help, I'm hungry. Sometimes I stop and help them, sometimes I don't. My children came up with an idea that I liked. They fixed up several sacks that had things in them that a person of that sort would probably need. Also had a track in it, and also had other things that would be helpful to them. And when they saw them, they handed me one of those sacks. I thought for a good while I'd fix me up some sacks, but I haven't yet. But I still wonder what else to do. And I do know that when there was idleness in 1 Thessalonians, that Paul said in 1 Thessalonians, that due to that idleness, those who don't work ought not to eat. What he was saying is, if you just take off and refuse to help yourself or do anything, then you don't deserve any help from us, which is an interesting twist, because it puts some of the onus at least on the person who is involved. I tend not to help somebody if they're smoking, or if they have a cell phone, or other indication that they spend a lot of money on things other than food, and then they're asking for money for food. I worry sometimes. I don't want to pass up anybody who's needy. And on the other hand, I don't want to validate the conduct of anybody who is obviously cheating and desiring help when they're not helping themselves. And I think both of those are things that God would have us to consider. But I try to keep in mind that I want to be more concerned about not helping somebody who needs it than I am about helping somebody who doesn't need it. Because that seems to be where God and Jesus come down with respect to these things that he's telling the Israelites of that day. We need to be sure that we don't have a hard heart, and that we don't let the people who are asking for things harden our hearts against all. And we need to have an open heart, an open pocketbook, and an open mind to help those who need it or who appear to need it if we think they need it. And we need to be open and quick and loving about that as we help in any way that we can. That's part of the conduct of the way God wants us to live through the week, and be fortified and learn to live as a result of the worship that we give on, in our case, Sunday morning. It's interesting to me that we come together on Sunday to feed on the Word and on the worship. We come to worship God, but when we truly worship God, there is a benefit that comes to us that gives us a fortified sense of readiness to serve the Lord and to be a blessing to others as well. And we also come to encourage and exhort one another. The Bible is clear about that. Some of them were forsaking the assemblies and ought not to be doing that. But the writer of Hebrews said, but come together to encourage and exhort one another in good works in order to be of benefit to our brethren, to help and encourage them to do good things. So, dual purpose of the assemblies. And both of them ought to encourage us to do what we ought to do and to help the needy and the poor. When Jesus says, the first and greatest commandment is love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Then immediately we see the great emphasis on that kind of thing throughout Scripture. Love your neighbor as you love yourself is not very different from doing to others as you'd have them doing to you. It is not very different from help those who need help. Not very different from as much as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it unto me. All those commandments end up the same way and tell us very strongly that we ought to be willing to be of help to our friends and neighbors who need help. In the Great Commission, Jesus says some rather startling things. Among others, if somebody comes along and says, I need to borrow your coat, give him your cloak, your outside garment as well. Don't turn away the person who comes to borrow you. If you lend to those only whom you expect to receive again, what are you doing more than the heathen? They do that too. I don't know, sometimes I think we might go broke if we gave to everybody that asked us for something. I'm sure God expects us to use some kind of common sense, but He doesn't expect us to use common sense to do away with the heart of what He has commanded us to do in helping others. And it is very clear to me that when you read the Sermon on the Mount and realize what He's saying to us, that it again becomes more important to help those who need help than it is to help those who do not need help. We don't need to do the other. We need to be sure that we do the first. And God is very concerned about that. And I don't know whether this is a correct statement or not, but it seems to be. He is concerned about that, and He is more concerned about that than He is about whether we worship correctly when we come together on the Lord's Day. At least, He makes it very clear that if we do it correctly on the Lord's Day, that doesn't count a nickel. If in turn we go out and mistreat and cheat others during the week, that we between the times we come together. I think that our coming together is actually a fortification of the work that we are to otherwise do. It's comparable to eating lean. And if all we ever do as Christians is come together on the Lord's Day and worship, it would be a lot akin to the normal worker who all he ever did for his job was come together and meet. The reason we eat the meal is to fortify our bodies to be able to do the work that we are called to do and paid to do. And in Christianity, the reason that we eat the meal, the reason we come together on the Lord's Day and we're fortified and ready to go, indeed the reason we come together on Wednesday night, the hump day, to remind us to continue on during the week, is in order that we might do the good deeds and the good works toward others. There's a whole lecture on this, but I can't avoid saying it. After talking again, as Isaiah did here, about sacrifices and burning incense and great days, I could ask, what does the Lord require me really? It is rather to do justice, to seek mercy, and to be honest toward God. I think God sometimes has a sort of a sense of humor. I hope, at least, that He does. when he says things like, I cannot bear iniquity and solemn assembly. If you're going to come together in solemn assembly and worship and go out and work iniquity, I just can't stand it, he said. And I think we need to be sure that we don't aggravate God by doing the things that would cause him to be not understood. I think Jesus had a favorite passage of Scripture. At least there's one that he quotes twice in different circumstances. Both times he quotes Hosea 6:6, which says, I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Sacrifice is the essence of Old Testament worship. And Jesus said, I desire mercy more than sacrifice. James says, judgment is without mercy to those who show no mercy. But the last part of that is, but mercy triumphs. We need to be more generous. We need to be more forgiving. We need to be more aware of who is needy and ready to help them if we want our worship on the Lord's Day to be acceptable. That seems to me to be the message of prophets to their culture. I thank you for coming.